Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jamie. If you're new here, I make videos about knitting and yarn and fiber arts. Feel free to check me out on Instagram and TikTok and also check out my patterns. All the links will be in the description as always. Welcome back to my knitting nook, my little knitting chair. Today's video is gonna be super chill. I thought it would be fun to do a Q&A. I haven't done one of these in God knows how long, and I thought instead of answering questions on my Instagram story and like spamming my story, especially since I have a bit of a tendency to ramble, I figured doing a YouTube video would be a better forum to answer your questions. And yeah, so I put up a story a couple days ago asking if anyone had any questions to ask me literally anything, and you guys submitted a bunch, so I'm gonna be answering them. Yeah, I'm excited to kind of unpack the things you wanted to know about me, I guess, and just have a very casual knit and chat vibe. Before we get started, I just want to quickly talk about my jumper. I will talk about it in more detail in my next knitting podcast whenever I end up doing that. I imagine I'll probably do one soon because I have a few projects that I haven't properly shared, so I'll spare you all the gruesome details for that one. But in case you're wondering, this is the Semper Sweater V-neck by the Knit Pearl Girl. This is my most recent FO. I like just finished it maybe a week or so ago. I finished it right in time to wear to Bendigo, which if you'd watched my last video, which was my Bendigo vlog / haul, so highly recommend checking that out. It was a lot of fun. I went to the Australian Sheep and Wool show. I also went to the Finders Keepers market, so I vlogged all of that in one video. But yes, I did wear this to Bendigo, so you would have seen a glimpse of it in that vlog. I was like rushing to kind of get it blocked and dried in time and managed to do so. I knit this in Knitting for Olive, Merino and Soft Silk Mohair held together. The shade is Red Currant. So yeah, this is my first ever red jumper and I am obsessed with it. That is what I'm wearing. I'll talk more about it in my podcast, as I said. So keep an eye out for that. What I'm gonna be working on, and I may regret this, I may end up not even knitting at all because sometimes when I'm knitting and talking, my train of thought gets very scrambled. So if I'm not vibing the knitting and talking thing, I'm probably gonna stop, but feel free to knit along. Don't let me stop you. But I kind of had two projects that I'm working on at the moment. One is a pair of socks, which I just don't really feel like working on right this second. And this, which I casted on actually like just after I finished this because I was like, I need a new cast on now, a new like big jumper project, since I just like, this took me like a month or so to make. This is definitely gonna take me less than that because it's much chunkier. And this is the Fern Sweater by Joanne Ho from Knitwear by Joanne, from her book, Cable Knit Style. Hopefully the lighting is good. I'm backlit, so apologies, but yeah, this is from her book. It's a beautiful, lovely book, and she's actually coming out with another book next year, I think, so keep an eye out for that. But this is a book full of beautiful cable knits, and I actually hadn't like successfully finished anything from this. I did start something and then frogged it. It's another story I'll share with you eventually, but basically I was like not sure what to make, and I haven't done a cable knit in so long, and then I was like, wait a minute, I have all of this yarn from Wool and the Gang in this beautiful blue color, this Alpacino Merino yarn, which is like my favorite yarn from them. And they gifted me a sweater quantity, which I asked for, and they were like, we want to give you some yarn. I got yarn to make my Somewhere Over the Raglan jumper, but I really loved this blue color, which I'd never used before. So I asked for another, I don't know, I think I got another 7 or 8 skeins in this, which wasn't quite enough to make the fern pullover, but yeah, sorry, it's the fern pullover, not fern sweater. Yeah. I think I said fern sweater, fern pullover. Yeah, it wasn't quite enough, but I decided I'd just make mine like a little bit shorter, maybe about 10 centimeters shorter. And just to be sure that I won't run out of yarn, I've used a contrast color for the ribbing, which I'll do for the neck and the sleeves as well. And that's in the eucalyptus green. Sorry, being backlit is not the best for showing projects, but it's not really the point of the video, so I was like, it's fine. But yeah, so I just decided to do this contrast color. And I don't know, I just didn't really feel like working on the sock, and this is like my only other proper project at the moment that I'm working on. So if I wanted to do a knit and chat, I kind of had to cop the cables regardless, because the socks also have cables, and those cables are a lot more finicky because they're so small. So I figured, since I'm basically at the point where I'm at the neck shaping for the front, I still have to do the whole back section. This is worked bottom up, but I've done the body and the front and then the first like shoulder. And I'm gonna now work on the second shoulder, which probably won't take me that long, but I don't know, I think I'll work on it slowly as I work through these questions. But yeah, I'm doing like shoulder shaping. Probably not the smartest thing, but I have my pattern here just in case I need to consult it. But I mean, I'm basically just mirroring this side, so I figure it shouldn't be too hard. There's not as many cables because it's just the shoulder, so we'll hope for the best, and I guess worst case scenario is that I mess up and I'll have to throw it, and that's okay. We'll survive. Okay, I think that's all of the housekeeping out the way. All right, we're just gonna get straight into the questions. I'll try to answer as many as I can, but there are honestly quite a few, and I'm not sure if I'll have time to get to all of them because I don't want this video to be too long. Thank you so much to everyone who asked a question, and I'm really sorry if I don't end up getting to them all, but I'll do my best. I guess before I start, just like a little bit of context about me in case you are either new here or you just like don't really know anything about me and just like my videos. That's also so fine. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you'll learn a bit more about me through these questions, but basically I am a knitter, obviously. I am a knitwear designer, so I design my own patterns. I've been writing patterns for the past few years. I think my first patterns were released in 2021, so it's now like 3 years of like releasing patterns consistently. I am also an author, so like Joanne, I also have a book. This is not my book, this is her book. But yeah, I also have a book. Joanne and I have the same publisher, so that's kind of how I got connected with her. But anyway, I have a book. I wrote it last year. It was published this year. It's called Fast and Fabulous Knits. I live in Melbourne, Australia, if you couldn't tell by my accent. And yeah, this is currently like what I'm doing with my life at the moment. That may change. We'll have to see, I guess. But for now, this is what I'm doing. This is my passion. And yeah, I like love this community that I've been able to build through social media and being able to like meet so many people and connect with so many people. It's been really, really amazing. And I don't really know what else to say about myself. Yeah, anyway, that's just a little bit about me. So anyway, let's get onto the questions. Maybe eventually I'll actually start knitting. I guess on the note of like my backstory, sounds so ridiculous, but someone has asked, how long were you knitting before you started making your own patterns? I started knitting in 2019. I actually crocheted before that. I was crocheting for about a year or maybe a year and a half before I kind of started knitting. But yeah, so crochet was 2018 and then knitting maybe like April, May 2019. I don't know the exact date, but that was when I decided to learn to knit because I was a bit sick of crochet. I was a bit sick of not wearing the things that I was making. Just wasn't finding crochet was really my style, and I wanted to be able to like enjoy the fruits of my labor and wear the stuff that I made. So that's why I decided to finally search up on YouTube how to knit, and I was knitting very casually, but I loved it, but like very, you know, non-monetizingly for 2 years, I think. And then yeah, 2021 was when I started writing patterns. So I had like a fair amount of experience before I started writing patterns. I definitely feel like I obviously have more experience now, but yeah, I'm glad I didn't dive into writing patterns straight away because there was honestly so much that I feel like you need to learn before you start doing that. I feel like you need to get a really good sense of being able to read your knitting and understanding construction. And I probably wasn't, you know, 100% ready, but I mean, when are you ever really 100% ready? You kind of have to start something in order to, you know, get better at it. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't, you know, start any earlier really, because I feel like having a really good foundation will make pattern writing a lot less daunting and a lot easier. But I really did just like learn as I went. So yeah, about 2 years. I know there's some people who waited way longer or less time. I think it really just depends on the person and also the type of patterns that you're writing. I did start with like fairly basic patterns, and I've only really recently started delving into like more complicated construction methods and techniques and stuff. So yeah, it's a gradual process, but hopefully that answers your question, because all you asked was how long before I started making patterns, and the answer is 2 years. I guess on the topic of pattern writing, someone asked, where do you get your inspiration from? I get asked this question a lot. Like, it's probably one of the most common questions that I get asked. I really should actually knit, sorry. Honestly, I don't like have a very clear answer. I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think if I was constantly going towards like the same sources of inspiration, like it would probably start becoming inspiration and it would just be like copying. If I was just like always going to like one person or like one kind of area for inspiration. And I mean, there's so many ways you can find inspiration. So it's, yeah, it is a hard question for me to answer, and it's definitely changed over the years. I think at first I definitely was just like very inspired by social media, but also by, I don't even know, like pop culture and colors and color schemes and like just like random things that would pop up that I would be inspired by. And like my knitting has changed a lot, so that also kind of reflects that like my inspiration kind of has changed. But yeah, I think that's kind of where I would start out. I used to just be super inspired by different color palettes that I would come up with, and then, you know, the ideas would flow from there. Whereas now I think I'm more drawn by like specific construction types that I find, or a specific type of garment, or a specific stitch, or even just a specific yarn. Like a lot of the time I'll buy a yarn, not know what I'm gonna make with it, but once I kind of really think about it, then I'll be like, okay, I know what I'm gonna make, because like I wouldn't make this in anything else other than this specific yarn that I like already had, if that makes sense. So it's like sometimes the idea only comes after I have the yarn, rather than buying the yarn with an idea in mind. So yeah, sometimes I feel a bit bad about buying yarn without an idea in mind, but often like that's the only way I can really get proper inspiration, is to like actually have the materials in my hand and be able to properly, you know, visualize it. So I guess that kind of answers the question. In terms of like direct sources, I have been using Pinterest quite a lot more recently than I used to, specifically when I have like an idea in mind, but I need to kind of solidify it a bit more, and I want to just like see what's out there already. Or I don't know, just when I'm trying to come up with ideas, like I'll just make a mood board with like a bunch of different things, and then sometimes what I end up making will look absolutely nothing like what was on the board, but at least that helped me like get to where I was going, if that makes sense. So yeah, I do use Pinterest, and obviously I'm on Instagram, so I'm looking at, you know, people's work all the time and being inspired. But yeah, it is like not such a linear process for me, so it's a bit hard to answer. All right, this next question I really like, and I don't know if I've thought about it too much, but I don't know, it's a good question. So someone's asked, if you could go back and redesign one of your patterns, which one would you choose and why? So honestly, I mean, there are definitely things about a lot of my old patterns that I would change. Even my more recent patterns, like even some of the book patterns, like there's things I would change, and I probably, for most of them, I'd probably just, if I can, I would change the ones that are bottom up to be top down, because I'm a lot more comfortable with top down construction than I used to be. I used to just be really scared of it, and I was really comfortable with bottom up. But I think like, because my patterns are often quite cropped in length, and I do always like provide instructions on how to adjust length, but like, it is so much easier to adjust length when you're working from the top down, because you can like really try it on and actually see kind of where it's sitting. Whereas when it's bottom up, you kind of have to really know what the measurements are going to be for the sleeves or like the armholes. And so you kind of got to just do a bit of mental math, and like you can try it on, but I don't know, it's just like not as easy to kind of anticipate how long or short you want it to be, unless you like really have like a clear idea. Like for this, I kind of just had to like decide what my final length was going to be, and then like adjust kind of my measurements as I went, because a lot of this pattern is like very much like work until your piece measures X, and so I kind of got to be like, okay, but I'm making mine shorter, so it needs to be this much. So yeah, it's not as easy as working from the top down, where you can just kind of work until your desired length. Like once you've kind of got past the like yoke or the armhole section, and you're just working straight. So I think that's probably what I would do. And like I could go and do that, but I probably need to get them all tested again, and it would just be like a very big process, and I don't really want to do that. But that's probably what I would change if I was to go back and like change a lot of my patterns. But if there's one pattern that I could go back and like redesign, I guess probably just my first pattern, the willow tee, because I had the least amount of experience when I wrote that pattern, and I just like would probably go back and change it and make it better, I guess, and maybe it would be a better pattern. I don't know, I'd also have to probably like go through and like look through all my patterns and like try and remember them all. So yeah, maybe that one. At some point one day when I have the energy and motivation, I will probably go back, and I mean, I'd like to do this, I'm not gonna make promises, but I would like to go back to my old patterns and like rewrite them. I wouldn't necessarily be like redesigning them, but just like kind of reformatting and changing a lot of the wording to, or like just the formatting to be more consistent with how I write patterns now, and probably a lot clearer. Because like sometimes when people ask me questions, they're like knitting some of my first couple patterns, and they'll ask me questions, and then I'll have to like go back to the pattern to like see what they're talking about and answer the question. And then sometimes I'm like, wow, I would word that so differently now. So I totally get why they're asking the question. Like, it's not that it wasn't clear at all, but I know how I would write that clearer now. So yeah, I probably will do that at some point, but that's just like a very daunting task that I've been procrastinating. So We'll see if I get to that at some point. I would really like to, but you know, not sure when that will happen, so don't get your hopes up is what I'm trying to say. Lots of questions about patterns, so maybe I'll like stick to that topic for now, and then once I've kind of answered the questions about pattern writing and patterns in general, I'll move on, because I kind of like that these are all kind of in a similar topic. So a couple of people actually asked this, how to start writing patterns, or some good resources and tips on learning how to grade, because I think that's like the most scary thing about starting to write patterns is like needing to size grade and not knowing where to start. So yeah, totally get it, because it is really overwhelming, and I'm still learning, like genuinely. Like I know the basics, but like very much still learning and finding new ways that kind of work for me, and new ways that are more efficient and more accurate. I don't know if that's the right word. Precise? I don't know. Just like better than my old ways. But I would say the best sources, and I've honestly been using her blogs and her spreadsheet templates for a very long time, and I think she was probably the first like resource I really ever found, and I keep coming back to her whenever I'm like designing something that I haven't really designed before. Like I just designed a bottom-up compound raglan tee, so that was like, you know, uncharted waters for me. So I'll still come back to her blogs, because she has so many like really great resources, and that is Sister Mountain. She does blog posts on like pattern writing and grading, and has covered so many different aspects of that through her blogs. And then she also has a couple where she includes like a spreadsheet template that you can download, and explains all the formulas and like how to implement those and how to adjust them based on what you're trying to, you know, work out. And I have found those really, really helpful. That's kind of how I made my basic template that I really do adjust depending on the pattern. Like every pattern is different in terms of like the types of measurements and stuff that you need to calculate, and the types of stitch counts and row counts that you need. It just really depends, but it's a really good foundation and place to start. So I would highly recommend checking out Sister Mountain. I also use her spreadsheet for calculating yarn estimations. That is one I genuinely use every single time, and I found that helps so much, because obviously it can be really scary to have to be like, oh, I don't know how much yarn this is going to need for any other size except for my own. And obviously you can have testers to help you, but you kind of need to give testers an, you know, estimation of how much they'll need, so they know how much yarn to get. So that is really, really helpful for getting just like a rough estimation. It's definitely not exact, but it usually is very close. So that's probably my best tip. And then it's probably a lot more out there now than there used to be when I first started, because I think a lot more people have taken an interest in pattern writing. So that's great for you if you're starting now. Not so great for me when I was starting. I was like, there's literally nothing out there, and I'm gonna have to learn this all by myself. And as someone who is not very good at maths, it was really, really overwhelming. So I would just do some Googles on grading and see what you find. But yeah, I think like the most comprehensive resource that I've found that's like very much free and available is Sister Mountain. So yeah, definitely recommend checking her out. I would also recommend, if you don't know where to start in terms of like figuring out body measurements and garment measurements that you kind of need to work from for sizes that aren't your own, I would recommend using the Craft Yarn Council standard sizing. It's not perfect. There is really no perfect exact kind of standard sizing, because every body is different, but it does give you a good place to start. And then obviously your testers will help you with, you know, ironing out any issues that there might be with fit and sizing. But yeah, the Craft Yarn Council website has measurements for a range of parts of the body, from sizes extra small to 5X, and they also have kid sizes and men's sizes, I believe, as well, but I'm mostly using the women's size chart. But yeah, so that's really helpful. And yeah, I base all my sizes off of those measurements, so that's also helpful. But anyway, good luck for those people who ask those questions if you're wanting to start pattern writing. Okay, more questions about patterns. Someone asked, any ways to learn how to read knitting charts, especially lace designs for beginners? I don't think there's like a specific way to learn, because from my experience, most knitting charts that I've ever encountered, especially ones that I've made myself, will usually have like a little key. So I can use this as an example. So you might see this and be like, wow, that is a lot of symbols and that's really overwhelming. But luckily there's a legend right here which tells you what all the stitches are This one actually goes into a lot of detail because it explains even how to do the cables, not just what cables they are. But yeah, the same thing for lace. There'll be a legend or a key or however, whatever you call it, that will explain what each of the symbols means or what it stands for. And from there, I think, you know, it shouldn't be that hard. I feel like it's quite self-explanatory. I know that maybe like some people do find it hard. I've kind of never found charts to be super difficult, so I might not be the right person to ask when it comes to that. But yeah, I think like it can be daunting at first, but I think once you like actually start it and you have the project in front of you, and also if the chart also has like written instructions, like I try to do that with most of my charts, I'll have written instructions as well, just for people who maybe just need to read that one time just to like see it, and then they can see it on the chart and then they can just follow the chart from then on. That could also help just to like be able to compare the written instructions to the chart. But yeah, I guess like my best advice would just be to practice and try not be so overwhelmed, because it will tell you what the symbols mean. You don't have to like just know from your head or like guess, like it will tell you. So yeah, it's not so bad. Not to do a shameless plug, but I am going to do a shameless plug because I have heard a lot of feedback that my Josephine vest pattern has been really good for beginners, like, or people who are doing lace for the first time. It does include a chart. I've color coded the chart as well to make it even easier to kind of read, and yeah, I've gotten some really positive feedback on that. It's a very repetitive chart as well, and like isn't super overwhelming because it's only really like at the front and the back, just like in the middle of the piece, and everything else is stockinette, so it's not too intense. But yeah, I would recommend that pattern if you're looking for like a good beginner lace pattern. I wouldn't say it's like a super beginner friendly pattern because I wouldn't really recommend lace to beginners at all. But if you're confident in knitting and you want to start lace, I would recommend my Josephine vest pattern. And yeah, let me know how you go if you decide to try it out. All right, I've kind of only got like one other like pattern specific related question, and that is what are the most important things to learn before writing knit patterns? So I don't think I really covered this too much in the other one, rather than just saying like you need experience. But I do think, like I said before, like being able to read your knitting is so important. Like just being able like to have a really good comprehensive like understanding of your stitches and what they mean and how they work. That is really important. Being able to understand gauge and how to apply that to, you know, creating a piece from scratch is really important, because you can't even like get to the point of writing a pattern if you can't like design your own piece, I guess. So you need to understand the maths involved with finding your gauge and then applying that to getting the desired measurements that you want. Once you kind of got that, you can just kind of apply that to, you know, every aspect of your design. So I think those are the most important things to know. Also, it's best if you have a lot of experience in reading patterns and following other patterns before you start writing your own, because that will give you a really good idea of different writing styles and kind of how patterns are like meant to be formatted. I say meant to be, like there's no like official way. Like I know lots of people who write their patterns very differently, but it will also kind of help you figure out what makes most sense to you and kind of what you understand best. And yeah, you can kind of take those little bits and pieces from the patterns that you followed and apply that to make a pattern that makes sense to you and works for your design. All right, this next question it feels a bit personal. But this person has said, I'm nearly done with a project and found a few twisted stitches at the beginning. Would you frog? Now it's hard for me because I don't know what this project is. Like that could be a huge sweater made on, you know, 3mm needles. Like that's very different to like a very chunky project or something small. So it would definitely be a case-by-case basis, but I guess I'll explain why that was personal. My personal pet peeve is twisted stitches when they're not intentional. Obviously, like twisted stitches can be used stylistically for like twisted ribbing and things like that, but not talking about that. I'm talking about when people don't know that they're twisting their stitches. This person definitely does know, because they wouldn't be asking this question if they were not aware that those twisted stitches existed. But I'm coming from like experience here. Like I'm not talking as if I'm above doing it. Like I twisted my stitches when I first started. I did not know this until probably my second project. I think my first project was in garter stitch and I couldn't tell at all. It was completely impossible for me to see that. I probably would now, but garter stitch definitely makes it a lot less obvious. But when I was knitting my first piece in stockinette, the stitches were twisted for like the first, I want to say like maybe quarter of the yoke. I noticed after a certain point, I went, this doesn't look right. And I did not frog. I kept going, okay? And that was like probably a lot more than what this person's saying, which is just a few twisted stitches. This was like, this entire section is all twisted and then everything else is not. I just kept going. I never wore that jumper like out or, you know, in any serious context. It was very much an at-home jumper that I would wear honestly mostly through lockdown. But I just decided to keep going because I didn't want to have to like go back to the start. It was just too daunting. But looking back, like I probably should have. It would have been a much nicer jumper if I had. But regardless, I think I wouldn't frog if you've done this whole project and you see a couple of twisted stitches. I wouldn't frog the entire thing. That seems really excessive. But what you could do if you're confident and comfortable and it's like a simple thing to do, I mean, it really, like I said, it really depends on the project. So feel free to message me if you want. But what you can do is if you know, let's say it's just a couple of stitches that are next to each other or just like a stitch here and there, you can find like the stitch in that line, like the direct stitch that like corresponds with it. So let's say it was like this stitch here, you'd like follow the stitch all the way up. And when you get to that stitch, you just pull it apart so you're kind of like frogging. I'm not gonna do that, I'm gonna demonstrate because I don't wanna do that right now. But yeah, just like, I guess, drop all the stitches up until you get to that stitch. And then use a crochet hook to untwist it, and then you just work your way up and use a crochet hook to pull all the stitches kind of back up the line, and that should help. So that's kind of the best way to fix really small mistakes that are very simple and aren't, you know, lace work basically. You can even do that with cables. I've done it before when I've done a cable wrong in this project and other projects. So yeah, that's probably my best advice would not be to frog, but to try the crochet hook method. Unless it's like literally every stitch, then that's gonna be probably too hard to do. And I guess it's just up to you on how much you care, how obvious it is, and how much you want to wear the finished piece, assuming it's wearable. But I am very sorry, sending my condolences to you for that, but also I'm very proud of you for acknowledging it and being aware of it, and hopefully it won't happen again, you know, because this is what happens when we can read our knitting. Comes back to my thing about reading knitting, is we can identify twisted stitches, which unfortunately a lot of people can't do, and it irks me, not because I'm like angry at them, it's not their fault, I just like want to like shake them and be like, hey, your stitches are twisted. And it's a very simple fix. You either need to knit through the other loop, you're either knitting through the wrong loop, or you're most likely just wrapping the yarn over in the wrong direction, which is such an easy fix. So yeah, anyway, sorry for ranting. It was always gonna happen when we start talking about twisted stitches. I'm always gonna end up going on some rant. Another question. This is like a personal question, I guess, an actual personal question about me. The question is, do you ever plan to move to a different state in the future? So like I said, I live in Melbourne, Australia. I have lived here my entire life. This is actually my childhood bedroom, like I still live here. So it's a bit kind of hard to imagine living anywhere else, even though I would love to move out of my house, which I really hopefully will be doing, you know, like next year, let's hope. I don't see myself moving states, definitely not anytime soon. I do have a partner, my boyfriend Asher, who has appeared in a video or two. We have been together for more than 2 years now. So yeah, that's a huge reason I wouldn't leave, because, you know, he has a stable job here that I don't think he would want to leave, and I don't know, I don't really have any intention to leave. Like my friends are here, like I do have friends in other places, but yeah, my closest friends are all in Melbourne. So I don't know, I wouldn't really have any reason to kind of move to another state in Australia. Yeah, I have like no desire to, honestly. I think if all those other factors weren't a thing and I could just pick somewhere else that I wanted to live, I could probably pick somewhere warmer, but it's hard because like Sydney's probably the next warmest, like, because I wouldn't want to live somewhere where it's hot all the time, because I don't actually do so well in heat, and I wouldn't be able to wear my knits, so you know, it's a trade-off. But I probably would pick somewhere that like is a little bit warmer than Melbourne, because our winters are bloody cold. But I can't imagine myself living in Sydney. Like that would just, firstly, it's so expensive. The rent is insane there, way worse than Melbourne, and I am terrified to drive there. And if you live in Sydney, you probably tell me, it's fine. That's what they all tell me. But the roads are so different to Melbourne. Our roads are very straight and it's a grid and it's really easy and it's like so much more chill. Whereas Sydney, it's windy roads, up and down hills. Oh my God, also just like walking up and down the hill. Like I could not, like I'm a flat road girly. Like do not make me go up a hill. Like it's just I can't. Especially if it's warmer. Like if it's gonna be hotter, I don't wanna be walking up hills, you know? So yeah, I don't think I could ever live in Sydney, even though it would be nice to have better beaches, but I survive. Yeah, I guess the answer to the question is no, I don't plan on doing that. Things could change, circumstances may change, but it's definitely not on the cards. Someone's asked, are you going to release a pattern for the orange zipper sweater from your YouTube videos? So they're referring to, it's on my bed and I just do not want to like get up and reach for it, but I'll put a photo of it maybe here, the one that I was making and finished off in a couple of videos ago. Yes, that is definitely my plan. That's why I made it, to write a pattern, but unfortunately I've been procrastinating it like nobody's business because it's just really overwhelming, and I feel like once I start I'm gonna be like, oh, it wasn't that bad, but I just had like such a hard time writing the Heartstopper tee. Like it was just so many new things that was exciting when I was like making it, sort of, even though I had to frog a lot, but like writing the pattern was just such, it was a lot. It was really hard. I really struggled. I got there in the end, but it was like, it took ages, and I just don't want to have to do that again because I know that this one's going to be similar because I'm trying so many new construction methods, and also the sample didn't work out like exactly how I wanted it to, and I really don't want to make another one. So having to like write a pattern that has like adjustments from the first sample is like more daunting than just like writing the pattern based on how I did the first sample. So I think that's probably what's stopping me, and I just have to really be in the right headspace. So yeah, that is definitely the plan, but I have absolutely no idea when that's coming. Hopefully soon. Like I really should just do it, but I don't know. But yeah, that is the plan. I don't know when that's gonna come. It will hopefully come soon. This is absolute torture. I actually don't know if I can answer it, but someone has asked me, what is my favorite Taylor Swift song and my favorite era? So one thing about me is I'm a Swiftie. If you didn't know that, now you know. I genuinely don't know. Okay, favorite song, really, really hard. Literally like choosing your favorite child, but you have like over 200 kids. So yeah, that's very, very difficult. Not all Taylor Swift songs are created equal, but it is still a very, very difficult thing. So take this with a grain of salt because it could change. But I think if I have to pick one, I'll probably say Dear John. If not, it's like definitely in my top 3. I don't know. It's really, it changes a lot because she releases so much music now and it's like constantly changing, but Dear John just sticks out to me for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's just like so well written. Like honestly, do not know how she was writing songs like that at that age. I think she wrote it when she would have been around 19 or 20, like 5-6 years younger than me, and I just can't comprehend being able to kind of be that in touch with my emotions and write such lyricism at that age. So that song specifically stands out, and also because of course it's self-written, like the whole Speak Now album is, but that song particularly is just, it's really, really something special, and it's so brutal in the best way. It's also long. It's over 6 minutes long, and one thing about me is I love a long Taylor Swift song. So that one ticks that box. And I also think for me, I didn't appreciate that song for a very long time. I think it only really hit me like, oh my God, this is an incredible song, when I was like 18, 19. So it kind of makes sense if you've heard the song. Like she talks about like her experience at that age, at 19, dating an older man, John Mayer. And not that I've ever gone through that experience. I've never dated anyone more than like 2-3 years older than me. But I think, yeah, I was only really able to comprehend the song once I kind of reached that age. And yeah, I remember just like this one time I was listening to it and I had that like moment where everything clicked, and all of a sudden you hear the lyrics in a completely different way and you're able to like actually understand it. And like I have never, my appreciation for that song has never lessened, I guess, since then. I've just been like a Dear John stan ever since. I like feel really bad that I probably like didn't appreciate and slept on it for a while there, but I guess I was quite young, so it kind of makes sense that, I don't know, that song didn't really hit the same way that like We Are Never Getting Back Together did, you know? Not that I could really relate to that song either when it first came out, but that's not the point, you know? It was a fun song, and I think it took me a bit of time before I could relate to the really like heartbreaking ones. But yeah, that one has to be one of my favorites. Favorite era. Actually a harder question to answer than the favorite song. because I like different things about each era, and I find it really hard to choose because for me, I actually see the eras and the albums as different things. Like, telling you my favorite Taylor Swift album also changes all the time. Like me trying to decide right now, like Speak Now I think is still my favorite, but there are so many, but I think Speak Now is still my favorite. So yeah, but I don't think Speak Now is my favorite era, if that makes sense. Like the actual like aesthetic of it all, and like I never went to the Speak Now World Tour, not sure why. I was very young and I don't remember why I didn't go. There may have been a reason, there may not have been a reason. It was a very different time back in 2012. Yeah, very different time. I did go to the Fearless tour, so I don't know why I didn't go to the Speak Now tour. I will have regrets about that for the rest of my life, but yeah, I don't feel like the era was particularly impactful for me, but the album is definitely, it's in my top 3, if not my favorite. It's just like, it's very hard to compare her old stuff with her new stuff. So, and also like the genres are also different. It's very hard to compare like a country album to a pop album to like a folk album, you know? So yeah, I would say Speak Now, favorite album, and then favorite era, probably Reputation, but I feel like she was very absent during that time, and I love a good like Taylor Swift's doing all the interviews and making all the content era, and that was not the Reputation era. It's quite the opposite. So it's really hard to choose. I actually don't even know. I'll just say Speak Now. I think Speak Now, favorite album, Reputation, favorite era for like aesthetic purposes, but yeah, anyway, sorry, this is such a hard question. Let me know in the comments what yours are because I'm very curious. I always want to know what my other Swiftie friends think. Okay, this is actually a really good question. A personal one again, but one that I think is a very good one. So someone has asked me, how do you keep healthy boundaries living at home as an adult? So yeah, as I said before, I do still live at home in my childhood bedroom with my parents. I do have 2 siblings, they don't live here, so I think that has definitely helped. I think if I still had siblings at home, I would be going insane. But luckily being the youngest, it means that, you know, everyone else has left the nest and I can kind of hang out here as long as I want until I'm ready to move out, financially that is. But yeah, like I luckily am not living with like a full family. And then also, I guess luckily I work from home and no one else does. So Monday to Friday, I'm here alone every day, which for me is huge. And then also I have my partner, as I said, and I do sleep at his house like a couple times a week. So I'm not around my parents all the time by any means, and definitely not every night. Like I'll still see them when I go to his place, but I like won't be here as long, I guess. The weekends I do find challenging. Sometimes I'll want to like get work done on the weekends because like I make my own schedule. I can work on the weekends if I want, but sometimes I'll want to do that and there's just like my parents are home and they'll be like watching TV and talking and being loud and like being all over the place, and like I just find that really disrupts my workflow. So that's a kind of like the most challenging time. And also just like, yeah, if I'm home on the weekends and they're home and I don't have plans, then I'm just kind of around them a lot. So yeah, I find, yeah, mostly just like the fact that I have like space away from them during the day. I mean, obviously I would anyway if I was not working from home, but yeah, I guess because I work from home, like it does just definitely help that they're not here all the time. I probably could have more healthy boundaries. I mean, I'm not gonna go like get into the weeds of like my relationship with my parents. It is overall a very good relationship. Otherwise I definitely wouldn't be living here. However, yeah, I probably, like I'm trying to like not feel the need to tell them every single aspect of what's going on in my life and every single aspect of what's going on with my work as well, because it kind of allows me to just like have that kind of separation as well. But yeah, it's not the easiest, and I do very much look forward to when I will not be living here anymore. As much as it is like emotional and hard because I've always lived here. I would also say like, yeah, it definitely has improved over the last like year or two when we were in COVID lockdown, and like I did have a sibling living here at the time, so that also made it a lot worse. But yeah, during lockdown, that was not the best for boundaries because like I said, also we were all working from home. It really changes the dynamics. So luckily, for the most part, that has improved since, you know, we're not all on top of each other all the time. And I guess my house isn't like, I don't live in like a mansion, but like my house is pretty big. So I am also kind of able to get space from them. Like even when they are here and I'm here, like if I'm in my room and they're like in their room or downstairs, like there's enough separation where I don't feel like I don't have privacy, if that makes sense. But I definitely prefer it when I'm home alone. Keeping going with the like personal questions vibe, someone has asked any trips coming up? If not, what is your dream trip? So I have sort of 2 trips coming up. One like proper trip, one very short trip. I did make a rule no overseas trips this year because I genuinely cannot afford it, and I went on a lot of overseas trips over the last few years, which I'm very fortunate to have done, and I don't regret doing that at all because I'm like so happy I did it while I was able, and not having as many, you know, financial pressures as I know I will have in the future. But yeah, I do kind of need to like save a bit and like just chill a bit this year. So I was like, absolutely not, like don't get tempted, no overseas trips. Like even if you have FOMO, like don't do it, like you need to not. And so I have stuck to that, and I believe I will be sticking to that for the rest of this year, which is great. And I've had like a couple of like small little trips here and there this year, but nothing crazy. But my boyfriend and I did just book our trip to WA. So yeah, I did actually just go to Perth like a month or 2 ago to see his family, but that was like only a couple days and we were just in Perth. But this January we're going to be going to, well, we will go to Perth. Like I said, that's where his parents live, but then we're going to do a road trip from Perth all the way to Esperance, which will take us, I think our trip is, the road trip itself is like maybe 10 days, something like that. So that's gonna be really fun. We booked a few Airbnbs along the way. I did really want to do it in a van, but it just worked out that booking accommodation and driving a car was actually gonna be cheaper because his dad's kindly lending us his car. So that will save us quite a bit of money. But I would love to do a van trip one day. So I guess like dream trip, it would be, yeah, doing some kind of van life trip, maybe up in like the Northern Rivers and like the Byron Bay area. I've been there, but only for like a really short amount of time. So I'd love to see more of that area and like do a van trip. That would, it's something I really want to do, even though I don't actually know for sure that it's something I would enjoy. Like I may not enjoy the van life, but I just want to get that out of my system. Like I just want to say I've done that, and I may love it. And so yeah, that would probably be like dream trip that I haven't done yet. I mean, there's so many places I want to go, but that's just like what comes to mind. But yeah, we're doing a road trip in WA and then also going to be in Perth, so that's really exciting. And then the smaller trip that I was talking about is that in October, for my mum's 60th birthday, my family and my boyfriend are going down to Tasmania for like a couple days, I don't know, 5-6 days or something, and we're doing the Three Capes track. So we're gonna be hiking, which is look, if it was my 60th birthday, it's not what I would choose to do, but it's what my mom wants to do. So I'm gonna do it, even though I'm probably gonna struggle, but hoping to kind of get my fitness up a little bit between now and then to hopefully make it a little bit less unbearable for everyone else who's gonna have to deal with my complaining. It's like mostly what I'm concerned about, less about me, because like I know I can do it, but I'll just probably complain a lot, and I know everyone else will find that annoying. So that's my main concern. But it's supposed to be really beautiful, and we aren't camping, we are like sleeping in like little cabins or something that they have like along the way. It's like part of the whole experience or something, I don't know. But yeah, so that makes it a little bit less daunting of like not having to at least like sleep in a tent, but we still have to like carry all of our stuff with us every day. So it's gonna be very much out of my comfort zone, but it's supposed to be really beautiful. And yeah, like I said, it's what my mom wants to do for her birthday. So what am I gonna do? Not come? Like obviously I'm gonna do it. So yeah, that's kind of like my next trip planned. But the next like longer trip that isn't just like a couple of days is WA in January. Another question is, how did I meet my boyfriend? We met on Hinge. That's technically how we met. We did already kind of know each other before, but he had lived in Perth and he moved to Melbourne only a few months before we matched on Hinge. So I didn't know him well, but like we had some mutual friends and like had definitely crossed paths before, like when he had visited Melbourne. But yeah, we didn't like know each other well by any means, but we ended up matching on Hinge, and that was kind of how our relationship started. And 2.5 years almost later, we are still going strong. So this is my ad for Hinge, not sponsored, but yeah, it sometimes works, okay? Push through it. I know it's hard when it feels like there's nothing out there, but you definitely can get really lucky like I did, so yeah. Someone says, I'm a beginner knitter and I don't know what type of projects I should do besides a scarf? Look, I'm the biggest advocate for like just jump into it, like just do a jumper. Like even if you think you're not ready, just do it, because you'll learn things. It may not be the most beautiful jumper ever made, it may not be the most perfect thing ever made. I wouldn't recommend using anything expensive. Like use yarn that won't cost you a lot, and like just learn. Like see it as a learning project, not like this finished object has to be perfect, I'm gonna wear it every day type of thing, because I just think that's the best way to like get over that hurdle. Because if you start knitting scarves or things like that, you're honestly not gonna learn anything except like how to knit back and forth in rows, which it's just like there's so much more to learn. So yeah, for me the first thing I knitted was a jumper, and the second thing I knitted was a jumper. So yeah, that's my advice. It may be hard and scary at first, but I promise you probably won't regret it, because you'll come out of it and then you'll try like an easier project and you'll be like, wow, I'm so good, this is so easy in comparison to what I already have done. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. I think that's like pretty much all the questions, and I feel like I've been recording this for way too long. So I'm gonna wrap it up there. I also have kind of gotten a bit lost on where I'm up to with this, so I think I need to like have my full focus for finishing this off. But yeah, hopefully you learned a little bit more about me, and yeah, thank you so much to everyone who asked some questions, and thanks for watching. Obviously, let me know in the comments what you're working on. I would love to know what you were knitting whilst watching this, or just what you're working on in general. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe if you're not already. And yeah, I think that's all. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.